right, guys, we are going to just do a fun chunky glitter today. I'm going to show you how to use the hang method with chunky. If you haven't tried it yet, it is like the best way to add chunky to your cup. We're going to use this beautiful, it's called Golden Opal. I'm going to put it, it's like this white, beautiful, chunky glitter. I've mixed it with fine and chunky. And we're going to put it over this beautiful coral base. I use this cup to show you guys a tutorial on how to spray paint a base with no drips. And you can see it's gorgeous and has no drips. And now we're going to move on and keep using this sucker and do a beautiful chunky chunky glitter on it. So I'm going to move in a paper towel here. Get this sucker hung up. I've already got my nitrile gloves on. I am ready. Set this up here. Get this right in the camera for you guys. It's just my little janky little drying rack, but it works. Okay, now I'm gonna put on my chemical mask and I'm gonna get my epoxy mix and I'll be right back with you guys. All right, guys, I have my chemical mask on, so I'm gonna be a little muffled, a little Darth Vader-esque, but we've got our glitter ready. I've got my epoxy mix and I've got my glitter plate to go and ready, so we can add that glitter quickly. I'm gonna do the hang method. If you haven't seen the hang method done and you want to see a more in-depth tutorial about it, you can go back to my menu of videos and search for the hang method. It's one of my older videos. I have not quite updated it yet, but you can also watch my hang method glitter, but that does the fine glitter. But it gives you the idea of what we're going to be doing and what you're going to be seeing here. So I just take about 2 mLs. That was probably about 2.5. It was a little more than normal, so I might have too much. We'll see. 2 mLs, and we just slide that from the bottom and start working it down the cup. If you can move the epoxy easily, you have too much. It should actually be quite difficult to work this epoxy down. And just scrape and move. You want it really thin. This method I love because it uses very, very little epoxy, but gets a really good result. So you put a lot of pressure on the cup and push, and just push that epoxy down to the lip. You'll notice, as I've talked in other hang method videos, that if your finger sticks, that means there's no epoxy there. If it just glides over smooth, that means you have epoxy and you're working good. So you can definitely feel where the epoxy is, even though it's super duper thin, and that's okay. That's what you want. You want to feel around the rim, and any place like right there your finger sticks, you're going to work over that and bring some epoxy down to it and get it on there. If you can draw and really see a line, or you're getting drips, you're using way too much epoxy. I literally, when I mix this, it doesn't even come up to the 2.5 line as a total, so it is under 2.5 milliliters. All right, so we're almost done. I can feel it getting pretty glossy. Make sure there's not a lot left up there. You can just kind of, anytime you run out or feel like you're losing epoxy or don't have enough, you can just re-scoop from the bottom where you originally started it. There's usually a little extra up there. And keep working it down. And there we go. It feels like we've pretty much got the whole cup done. There's a little spot right there. Okay, so now we've got epoxy all over the cup. Just doing one last check. I like to double check the rim. Make sure it's set, and double check the line around the bottom to make sure it's set, because sometimes you miss this, weirdly miss the spot. All right, so now I'm going to get rid of my drying rack for a second. And I'm going to bring this over here. I'm actually going to remove my right-hand glove because I need to use it with the glitter. I'm going to keep my left hand on because I'm still around the epoxy and touching the epoxy. Then, sorry, I have alcohol ink and paint all over me from the other tutorials today. So we're going to just sprinkle this on. I do it over the plate. And that way it catches my, what I call fallout. So I don't use, if you've watched all my tutorials, you know I don't use glitter shakers. They make me crazy. Having to open the cap and pull off that shaker part to be able to fill the cup back up, to put the glitter back away, makes me nuts. So I just use these cups. This is like a little Tupperware storage container. It has a lid. I get it at the dollar store. All right, and then fold it. Dump it back in. See how easy that was? That's why I like these little cups. The glitter shakers make me nuts. I've never had a need for a shaker top. And just roll it around, get all that glitter on there. All right, when you feel like you've got it pretty good, double check. Just making sure it doesn't hurt. Shake the cup a little bit to get the stuff that's not really even stuck on there off. Fold that, get that out of the way. Okay. Now I'm going to move the glitter in this paper towel because I'm going to save all this little glitter on this paper towel. Because I love this glitter. And so I'm going to move this over to the side and I'm going to keep on working on this cup. I'm going to bring this down, put this down here. And now I'm going to put my other glove back on because we are going to touch the cup. This is a super, oh my gosh, now I can't get this glove on because it's inside out. And I can't blow into it because I got my chemical mask on. Hang on, guys. All right, there we go. Okay, chemical mask back on. Okay, so what you're going to do now is you're going to just tap and press this glitter to the cup and push it on. That's going to flatten all that chunky glitter down to the cup. I do this because it makes it to where you can use way less epoxy to cover this. If you don't do this, it's going to take probably 3 to 4 coats before you get a really good coverage on that glitter where there's no real sharp edges poking out. Also along the edge is because it's glitter chunky. I tap around the edge so that there's nothing sticking up off the bottom because that'll just cause a problem down the road. So I just make sure it's there and there's a nice bottom is flat. And there you go. So this thing under epoxy is going to be ridiculously gorgeous. You can also do the same thing on the rim. Tap the rim to move all the chunky off the rim. So you don't have to deal with that. And let's see. You'll have some on your hands. It's fine. No big deal. Okay, so you can see just how incredibly glimmery. And you see it's not even white. It's now like a creamy, coral, shiny, like super blinged out. This would be a beautiful geode. This would make a really beautiful mermaid peekaboo. Or if you know somebody who just loves bling, this is just a gorgeous bling cup. All right, I'm going to get this bad boy. I'm going to let it cure, and then we will throw some epoxy on it. But we're going to let this cure down as a solid layer first. All right, we'll be back. We are back, and the cup has dried overnight, has cured up overnight. And you can see, I'm bringing it in close, how flush to the cup that glitter is. Nothing is sticking out. Nothing is poking out. It's going to be super duper duper easy to cover this in epoxy. So what I'm going to do now, and this is going to be your tip for this video, because I always try to put in something that I learned as a newbie that wasn't easy information to come by. I had to kind of like dig it out and figure it out. And this is actually one I figured out on my own and then asked other people about it. And they said, yep, I have the same issue, but nobody's really talking about it. So what you need to do before you epoxy this cup is you need to spray this cup with matte, clear spray paint. The reason being is these big chunky glitters tend to repel the epoxy. Not the entire cup. You'll just get it like a big patch that won't cover, and you'll try and try and try and it will never cover. I don't know what it is, but it's something about these giant chunky glitters that do that. So if you put the matte finish on top, it doesn't dull the glitter at all. All it does is it puts a barrier between the glitter and the epoxy so that the epoxy sticks to the entire cup. So I'm going to take this outside right now and I'm going to thoroughly coat it in the matte clear enamel spray paint. All right, that's my little tip on this video, guys. Make sure you do that for all your chunky glitters. Okay, I'll be right back. We're gonna get this cup sprayed. So the cup is thoroughly coated with clear coat spray paint. I did 2 layers just to make sure, because sometimes when you just do 1 layer, you don't even, because it's clear, you don't see that you missed a spot. So I go over it twice. We're gonna go ahead and epoxy this cup. I've got my 2 little measuring cups, my A and B, my applicator, my silicone applicator. and I've got my gloves and my safety mask. So I'm gonna measure in equal parts. If you've never measured epoxy before, on these little cups you get, these are really convenient to use. You don't have to use these. You can also use things like this, like a little plastic one, but these you do have to do like measure on a scale because they don't have the measurements on them. But these, they have the little measurements along the side. So I'm gonna do 7.5 mils in one and 7.5 mils the other of A and B. Mix them together. I stir vigorously because I go through with a torch. I'm not worried about bubbles. I torch them out. If you're worried about bubbles because you don't have a torch, you can heat up the epoxy just a little bit with your heat torch or a blow dryer, and it will help pop some of the bubbles. But this torch works really, really well for getting rid of all the bubbles, all the micro bubbles. It's 100% worth the investment. It's really inexpensive. I'll have this linked in the drop-down menu. It's on Amazon. It's really inexpensive. Okay, guys, so I'm gonna speed this video up so you, I'm sure most of you have already seen me epoxy, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it on camera, but in high speed so that in case somebody hasn't seen it, they kind of understand the concept. Make sure you wear your safety equipment, your nitrile gloves, and a chemical mask. Again, I will link these as well. These are very, very important. This stuff is toxic. I do use a no VOC one, but I still wear a chemical mask because it is just so intense while it's mixing and the chemical reaction is happening. They say it's healthy, but I'm a safety nut. So I'm gonna be real careful and wear my special gloves and my special mask and a mix. All right, here we go. Okay guys, I've still got my chemical mask on. I'm going to keep it on because this epoxy is just freshly mixed. It's doing all the chemical reaction things and I don't want to inhale any of those vapors. So what you guys saw me do was quickly apply, well, it wasn't quick, but for you guys it was quick because I sped it up for you guys, is I applied thoroughly using my silicone brush. This is actually just great because it keeps the epoxy off your gloves. I don't always use it, but if I have one laying around and it's already dried and clean, I just grab it because it definitely makes applying easier. But I've only got like 4 or 5 of these in, well, if you saw my workshop, it's not as organized as this space. So it keeps your gloves fresh. So I can reuse these gloves for a long time as long as I'm using my applicator to do the application because I'm not getting that much epoxy on my hands and I can just use them over and over. So these are great. And then you saw me apply it. At the very end, I saved the last for the little bottom and I go over the bottom. Make sure everything is smooth. I do one last check over the last cup. Then I hit it with my torch. Oops. I hit it with my torch because even though it looks with glitter, you don't notice the bubbles as much. But if you don't torch it and there are bubbles, even though if you can't see them, they will give this surface of the epoxy a texture. You can feel the lumps and you can feel it. You can feel it through the epoxy. So you want to definitely, even when you're working with chunky glitters, you still want to go through and pop bubbles to make sure you kill all those little micro bubbles and bubbles so that you get a good, smooth, glossy finish. Now you guys can see that there is no glitter sticking up out of this epoxy because the glitter is laying so flat to that hang method epoxy application. It's going to probably take this one coat to really cover the glitter, maybe a second coat to get a really smooth finish, and then add our decals and fun stuff. But there you go. Okay guys, we're going to let this cure and we'll come back and finish this cup up. Hey guys, okay, we are back and this is the tumbler. She's all finished. She's got right now 2 coats of epoxy over the top. It's very, very smooth. I didn't have to do any sanding because of the hang method and pressing that chunky glitter down. It made it really, really flat. So it was very easy to cover with the epoxy. So now this cup would be considered done. If you want it to stay like this, you can also add decals, stickers, or just keep going and turning it into something even crazier. So you can see all the gorgeous sparkle on this glitter with that kind of coral colored base. It's absolutely stunning. It would be a showstopper just like this. But at this time, so this is going to be this tutorial, guys. But if you want to see what I do with this cup, stay tuned, subscribe to my channel and click that bell because I'm going to be taking this cup and turning it into one crazy cup from here. But this was just a basic tutorial on how to get that chunky glitter onto your cup and get a nice, good finish with the epoxy. And so I hope you guys learned something. I hope you got some good tips out of this one. And if you want to see what's going on with this cup next, just stay tuned and you'll get the new video. Bye, guys.